Thank you, Vijay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Gidari Radha Gidari Radhe. Jaya Radha Gidari Radha Gidari Radhe. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Vishpad Paramahamsa Prabhachikacharya Sotara Satashishi Madesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada ki. ISKCON founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhadale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Vicharne Nivishesha Sunvani Paschadistane. We're getting to hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 28th chapter. Paranjan becomes a woman in his next life. He's been a woman for a good while now. And we're hearing from text number 44. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chiravasa Vratashama Venibhuta Shiroruha Bubao Upapatim Shanta Shikha Shantam Iva Analam Analam. Okay. Chiravasa Vratashama Venibhuta Shiroruha Babhavupapatim Shanta Shika Shantam Ivanalam. Chiravasa Vratashama Venibhuta Shiroruha Bhavavupapatim Shanta Shika Shantam Ivanalam. Chiravasa Vratashama Venibhuta Shiroruha Bhavavupapatim Shanta Shika Shantam Ivanalam. Chiravasa Vrata Shama Venibhuta Shiroruha Shaha. Bhavavupapatim Shanta Shika Shantam Ivanalam. Shama. Chiravasa Vrata Shama Venibhuta Shiroruha Bhavavupapatim Shanta Shantam Ivanalam. Chiravasa Vrata Shama Venibhuta Shiroruha Bhavavupapatim Shanta Shika Shantam Ivanalam. Chiravasa Vrata Shama Venibhuta Shiroruha Bhavavupapatim Shanta Shika Shantam Ivanalam. Are you ready, Damodar? You want to chant? I believe you. I'm just laughing at my... Where was I? Thank you, Prabhu. Chiravasa, wearing old garments. Vratashama, lean and thin on account of austerities. Now, how's it go with shama, meaning like mercy, or there's another word, shama. Isn't there very close? To tolerate? So it's like tolerating austerities. Somewhat related. Skinny? Okay. Thank you. Venibhuta, entangled. Shiroruha, her hair. Babao, she shone. Upapatim, near the husband. Shanta, peaceful. Shika, flames. Shantam, without being agitated. Iva, like. Analam, fire. Translation. The daughter of King Vidarbha, the daughter of King Vidarbha, wore old garments, and she was lean and thin because of her vows of austerity. Since she did not arrange her hair, it became entangled and twisted in locks. Although she remained always near her husband, she was as silent and unagitated as the flame of an undisturbed fire. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. When one begins to burn firewood, there's smoke and agitation in the beginning. Although there are so many disturbances in the beginning, once the fire is completely set, the firewood burns steadily. Similarly, when both husband and wife follow the regulative principles of austerity, they remain silent and are not agitated by sex impulses. At such a time, both husband and wife are benefited spiritually. One can attain this stage of life by completely giving up a luxurious mode of life. In this verse, the word chiravasa refers to very old torn garments. The wife especially should remain austere, not desiring luxurious dresses and living standards. She should accept only the bare necessities of life and minimize her eating and sleeping. There should be no question of mating. Simply by engaging in the service of her exalted husband, who must be a pure devotee, the wife will never be agitated by sex impulses. The vanaprastha stage is exactly like that. Exactly like this. Although the wife remains with the husband, she undergoes severe austerities and penances, so that although both husband and wife live together, there's no question of sex. In this way, both husband and wife can live together perpetually. Since the wife is weaker than the husband, this weakness is expressed in this verse with the words upapatim. Upa means near to, or almost equal to. Being a man, the husband is generally more advanced than his wife. Nonetheless, the wife is expected to give up all luxurious habits. She should not even dress nicely or comb her hair. Hair combing is one of the main businesses of women. In the vanaprastha stage, the wife should not take care of her hair. Thus her hair will become tangled in knots. Consequently, the wife will no longer be attractive to the husband, and she herself will no longer be agitated by sex impulses. In this way, both husband and wife can advance in spiritual consciousness. This advanced stage is called the Paramahamsa stage. And once it's obtained, both husband and wife can be actually liberated from bodily consciousness. If the disciple remains steady in the service of the spiritual master, he need no longer fear falling down into the clutches of Maya. Haribol. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakya Chakshurn Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karana Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakopa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. At casual glance, it seems as if the ladies are being given the brunt of mercy in this purport by Srila Prabhupada. However, with attentive hearing, we can see that no, the husband's not being left out, neither are the disciples of the spiritual master. So this verse and purport covers all of us. Those who overly identify with modern culture in America would feel some discomfort or lack of appreciation of some of the things stated in this purport. Why don't we get right to one that would be a stickler? Generally, the husband is more advanced than the wife. Well, who's to say the man's more advanced than the wife? And that's why Srila Prabhupada said generally, not always. I've known some couples where the husband would admit the wife is more advanced than he. You wouldn't think of it, but if you study the life of Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he actually gave instructions to householders sometimes. And in essence, a one-liner, he suggested or instructed that each of them should think that the other is their Prabhu, that he is more advanced than I am, the wife. The husband thinks she's more advanced than I am. And in that humble mood, they both try to serve Guru and Krishna to the best of their ability. One couple that he gave that instruction to, they came back after some time and they had made some advancement, no question. If you cultivate humility, it will serve you well. In life, what to speak of Krishna consciousness? After some time, they came back and he asked, they paid a basis as a little exchange. But getting to the point that I want to make, he said, what did you have for lunch? And the husband said, my wife cooked some nice eggplant, offered to the deity. He said, oh, you're in Maya. You're attached to the nice tasting foodstuffs you offer to the Lord. And we hear, in this verse it's not specific, she became lean and thin. We can understand that they were not enjoying opulent Ekadashi Prashadam. They were living in the forest. And there's not a lot to be had in terms of foodstuffs in the forest. Oh, I hope I can find it. I want to read to you. It's earlier, isn't it? Yeah. Is it? I have to find this. The instructions given for the Vanaprasthas. I remember one time, here it is. It is 7:12, beginning with text number 18. 7:12:18. This is Narada Muni instructing Yudhisthira Maharaj on Vanaprastha life. A person in Vanaprastha life should not eat grains grown by tilling of the fields. Wow. How would you like it if everybody... No more grains now on. Every day.
Are there any grains that grow wild?
Now let's get to it. He should also not eat grains that have grown without tilling the field, but are not fully ripe. So there are wild grains, but you can't eat them if they're not fully ripe. Nor should a Vanaprastha eat grains cooked in fire. So he can't even eat the wild, ripe grains by cooking them. Wow. Gora, stealing my thunder, Dravida Prabhu. Gaurkishore Das Babaji set the example that he would get rice that he would bag at home sometimes and soak it in a bowl of Ganga water. I don't even hear mention of the salt that Krishna was complaining about to Sanatana Goswami. Come on here. You're giving me dry chapatis and there's not even a little salt. To paraphrase in modern language, you're killing me. But Sanatana said, what can I do? I offer you everything I have. And Prabhupada laughs and says, therefore Madan Mohan had to accept. So they're not eating cooked wild ripe grains either, nor should a vanaprastha. Indeed, he should eat only fruit ripened by the sunshine. A vanaprastha should prepare cakes to be offered in sacrifice from fruits and grains grown naturally in the forest. Now, when I hear that, it almost reminds me of the little girl with her little play kitchen putting mud pies together. Has about that much attraction for my tongue and mind. We have some of these fruitarians. We had a couple of our Prabhus that used to live here. They were fruitarians for a while, and they would bring to the Christmas holiday Sangha here in SanDiego. I forget their names. If you remember, remind me. Jason, yeah. Do you remember his wife's name? Tia. And they had a couple of children. Jai, Bhakti Jason, Tia Ki. So they would bring fruit pies and what have you. They were, wow. It's pretty austere. So when he obtained some new grains, so he had his wild, ripe grains, but when he gets some new grains, he should give up his old stock of grains. So he's not even allowed to put it aside. Give it away. Something. A vanaprastha should prepare a thatched cottage or take shelter of a cave in a mountain only to keep the sacred fire. But he should personally practice enduring snowfall, wind, rain, fire, and the shining of the sun. The vanaprastha should wear matted locks of hair on his head and let his body hair, nails, and mustache grow. This one strikes me. He should not cleanse his body of dirt. He should keep a water pot, deerskin, and rod, wearing the bark of a tree as a covering. Now, I always thought, wow, that's super austere. Some tree bark. But there are certain types of trees that you can peel it. Like, the husk of a coconut. If you peel it, it's all fibrous. So there are some tree barks that you can peel it, and it's actually kind of like a jute or a paper tree. Yeah. So it's not like I think Prabhu was talking about the monks wearing that those rough, always scratchy, super burlap bags or something. Not like that completely, but still pretty dang austere. So they should wear the bark of a tree as a covering and use garments colored like fire. Are you the one who told us how the cloth came to be saffron? So if they wear a white cloth and they go out in the morning and the wetness on the flowers, must be some particular type flowers, but the pollen gets on the cloth and it naturally dyes your cloth the color of fire. So a vanaprastha can wear that. Being very thoughtful, a vanaprastha should remain in the forest for 12 years, 8 years, 4 years, 2 years, or at least 1 year. He should behave in such a way that he will not be disturbed or troubled by too much austerity. Now, we would be counting the days like we were in prison or something. In 1 year, I'm getting out. But by practice of austerities, one becomes accustomed to austerities. Srila Prabhupada said anyone can become accustomed to any sort of austerity with practice. It just takes time before that rascal mind, Maharaj spoke so nicely on the rascal mind, until it gets beaten down and hobbled and contoured to the desire of I'm staying focused in devotional service. So one time I heard Danavir at the time, Vanachari. And I have no idea where this Vanachari, after class, that's a question I'll ask you, Prabhus. Where does this come from? I haven't ever read it. Surely, I hope it's shastrically based. But anyway, we'll wait for that for the end of class. But I heard Dhanavir Prabhu in Vanaprastha life, before taking sannyas, give a class on these verses in Mayapur. And afterwards I raised my hand and I said, do you think you could kind of like bring it a little closer to home to something we might be able to at least aspire for? I mean, it's needless to say, this is impossible for 99.9% of the transcendentalists to follow in this day and age. When I did service in Vrindavan in the mid-70s, we had one, mid to later 70s, we had a schoolmaster, Dr. Sharman. He was a Vanaprastha, and he didn't eat any grains. But in our association, we twisted his arm, we corrupted him, and on festival days, we got him to honoring Mahaprashadam, including grains. He was practicing an aspect of Vanaprastha. It's austere. One time, I was with Yasodanandan in Swami in Bangkok, and we were there for at least 2 weeks. And this is old school. There was no question of going and buying some cooked foodstuffs by others, and we didn't have any cooking facility ourselves. And so for 2 weeks, we ate the fruits of Bangkok. Now, normally, any of you who have tasted the fruits in Bangkok, some of them blow away the fruits in India. Sitapala. I mean, that's just one. If you don't know what it is, I'm not even going to try. But, papayas, mangoes, kichus, lychee.
Did they have mangosteen?
Mangosteen? Which is?
It's a purple fruit. It grows around that area. Really nice.
Wow. Prabhu Vijay is saying, did they have mangosteen, which is a purple fruit, and I don't think we got that. Now, first couple of 3 days, I was in ecstasy. I had never tasted, this was like a heavenly planet experience. 4th, 5th, 6th, oh my God, after a while it's like, gosh, give me some rice and dal, please. What I'd give for a chapati. It's not easy controlling the tongue. And as Maharaj said yesterday, it's really the mind. In the beginning, we focus on the senses because that's the most external. You're told, do this, we do it. Don't do that, we don't do that. In this way, at some point, the mind will get used to it. That's what regulation does. It creates habits, and habits create character. For Malaya Dwaja, and even the wife, Vadarbi, at a certain point, this is not an austerity. This is what we do. 36,000 years. Now, I do want to make mention, it's not that he sat in meditation for 36,000 years and doesn't get up and she simply, and it's not like that. From other scripture or other pastimes with sages in the forest, they will do this for a certain amount of time, but they'll also honor prasadam. Now here it says don't bathe, but generally you hear they will go and they will take bath. And they will do all their regulated activities, but the main focus, just like you Prabhus during this marathon have been going out, primarily focusing on book distribution. Let's say that being the main part of your day, the main focus for sure. And then the rest of the things, we do that which is favorable for keeping us in line, on track to do that service. So in the same way, it's that way with, and they weren't always alone. Like the sages at the Dandakaranya forest, they would often congregate. They would live in their little bhajan kutirs, thatched huts or whatever, in close vicinity. And that pastime, they all saw Lord Ramachandran. And from within their heart, the desire to serve the Lord in a conjugal mood arose. But I'm referring to that pastime to show that they're not always alone. And they don't always stay in one place because, when you're foraging in the forest, you have to eat. So, anyway, and there is a time frame, 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, like that. But the point is to come to the realization that Malayadwaja had. He realized his eternal identity is part and parcel of the Lord. He realized the Lord within his heart. He understood the difference, and he served the Lord. The Yuga Dharma was meditation at that time, and that's what he did. Now, for the wife, if I may, let's get to the duties of a wife, because she's covered. The woman, no, that's the results. To render service to the husband, 1. To be always favorably disposed toward the husband, 2. To be equally well disposed toward the husband's relatives and friends, 3. And to follow the vows of the husband. These are the 4 principles to be followed by women described as chaste. So like when Lord Ram was going to go to the forest, he assumed that Sita would stay behind. Forest life is not meant for a princess. But she wouldn't do it. She would follow the duties of her husband, the association of her husband. She would stay, how does Srila Prabhupada say? Upapatim, near to her husband. And it stated, that was 7:11:25, that verse. And here in 7:11:29, we get the result of a lady serving her advanced, elevated, must be, Prabhupada in the purport said, must be a pure devotee. Didn't he say must? There's no question. Where's it? Who must be a pure devotee. So this is what fruit she receives. The woman who engages in the service of her husband, following strictly in the footsteps of the goddess of fortune, surely returns home back to Godhead with her devotee husband and lives very happily in the Vaikuntha planets. Haribol. That was 7:11:29. So these are some of the contexts of the Vanaprastha for the man and for the woman. And as I said, I asked Dhanavir, let's say Goswami, can you bring it home a little closer? Well, the best example, and there are many in our movement. I have one godbrother named Jai Gaur. No, it's not Jai, but it's Gaurasundar. And he did a yagya with in the Gurukula in Mayapur by Bhakti Vijayapurna Swami, I think he. Consecrating his vows and his determination to follow Vanaprastha, the duties of Vanaprastha. And he wears yellow. Only one I know who's done that external step. Even caught a little flack for it, like, what's that about? Who does that, But I saw no fault in the... But the best example I can think is Vaisheshika Prabhu and Nirkula. They're Vanaprastha. There's no question of sex life. And what is their austerity? It's the Harinam Sankirtan, the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. They're living and breathing the Sankirtan movement. They are the personalities that we can give credit to. Who set this goal for 2 million Bhagavad Gitas worldwide? Who said it? Vaisheshika Prabhu, am I right? He's the general. He's the empowered Prabhu. And his wife is right there. Husband and wife can live perpetually if they are surrendered to Guru and Krishna, utilizing their life's energy in the service, devotional service. Now this is something we can aspire to follow the example of. Imitate. You have to be divinely empowered. But follow the example of, or follow the instructions of, the recommendations of. I mean, we should be listening to the recommendations of all our Prabhus. And instead of jumping to something that I want to say right now, I'm going to put some context here. Yeah, the phone. Austerities and renunciation, they're very closely related. Would you agree? It's about controlling the mind and the senses. So renunciation, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the chapter Antya Lila of Raghunath Das Goswami. It is stated, renunciation is the basic principle sustaining the lives of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees. Seeing this renunciation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is extremely satisfied. So when we hear the words austerity and renunciation, they, like Srila Prabhupada said, horrible. Generally that's, it's not like immediately like, yeah, lay it on me. The mind is like, hold on here. But the point of the renunciation, the definition, the purport of the renunciation being the life and soul of Gauranga's devotees, is that they only desired to serve Krishna. They only desired to please Krishna. They were pure Vaishnavas. When we hear about Raghunath Das Goswami's father and uncle, they maintained all the Brahmins of Bengal, basically. They were super wealthy. I think you would probably say they were billionaires in their time. They were that rich. And served the Brahmins, and they worshiped the deities, etc. But Lord Chaitanya, in a joking mood as a grandson of such exalted personalities, see, I use the term, he said, actually, they're not even devotees, really. They're almost devotees. Why? Because their every desire is not for the pleasure of the Lord. They are enjoying, they are happy, enjoying the comforts of life they have in the service that they render to others and all that comes with it. Service to Vaishnavas never goes unrewarded. And depending on what you want, that influences the result that you get. If you want to remain a multi-billionaire serving in this world, then that's no problem. But when you come to the point as Lord Chaitanya's intimate devotees of just wanting to please Krishna, then that's the true understanding of renunciation and austerity. Pure Vaishnavas. And it's manifested externally. Lord Chaitanya gave instructions to Raghunath Das Goswami, and actually these two devotees were hearing Narada Muni discuss. They basically followed these instructions. And we repeat them to see to what degree we should aspire to follow them. Do not talk like people in general or hear what they have to say. You should not eat very palatable food, nor should you dress very nicely. Do not expect honor, but offer all respect to others. Always chant the holy name of Lord Krishna, and within your mind render service to Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. And then Lord Chaitanya quoted, Trinadapi Sunichena, Torapi Sahishnuna, Amanina Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. As we heard this morning, it's only the Sankirtan movement that will deliver us in this age of Kali. No other process will do it. And when we hear the Sankirtan movement, it's not just the book distribution, it's not just the Harinam Sankirtan, but it's anything and everything that is favorable to coming to the point of completely being absorbed. Mind and intelligence in serving Krishna and remembering the Lord. When we come to that point, whether you follow these codes of austerity for Vanapras, Sannyas, Brahmachari, etc., or you don't follow them, it doesn't matter. When you've achieved the fruit of it, we had one, Loki Sharanga, a godbrother of ours. Did you know him? He gave his youth in Guru Kripa Swami's Namhata program The austerities those young men performed on Sankirtan, it would blow you away. How much time they spent on the field and how much they pushed, and were pushed, actually to a fault. Most of them repeatedly got kicked out of the country and arrested and what have you because of abuse, to the point of abusiveness or even stealing. But be that what it may, Prabhupada was pleased with every one of them and the sannyasis leading the party. They helped build Vrindavan, Krishna Balaram Mandir. They helped build Mayapur Chandradaya Mandir. And he, after doing that yajna, he retired to Vrindavan. Not something recommended for 99% of us, but he did it. Lived around Govardhan, and he pursued his bhajan, and he is a pure Vaishnava. Recognized by the Vrajvasis as such. Even I could appreciate that. One of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, Puri Maharaj, the younger, he used to do severe austerities. He was skinny as a rail, like very lean and thin due to austerities. At a certain point, Puri Maharaj told him, stop with the austerities. Baba, you don't need it anymore. You don't need it. But he still continued. That's what, whether they do or don't, but according to the heart's dictation, and he did. And as far as I know, he does. I think it was he was sannyas. He was a brahmachari when he went to Vrindavan, and I never heard of him taking the initiation sannyas. But he's an unalloyed Vaishnava, chanting throughout the day and night. Kukripa Prabhu at one point got him out of Vraj and took him to Thailand to preach to the congregation there. Fortunate lads. He still reads Srila Prabhupada's books. He was faithful to, he's a totally sold out disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. These moon-like devotees are there. That's the Bhajananandi aspect. But he gave his youth to the preaching mission of the spiritual master, and that's what we're asked to do. And generally, most of the servants of Srila Prabhupada take it to the end, to the best of their ability. I mean, Brigapati Prabhu, that you make mention sometimes, been distributing books how many years? 45, 46 years, and he's probably been a devotee for 45 or 46 years, and his body's at least as old as mine, 66. Still going out. These are the examples to follow, to aspire for. What else did I want to say in this regard? So let me try and get back to, so renunciation, it's the quality of the Vaishnavas, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And I wanted to add a little purport to Maharaj's class, if I may. That's what Vaishnavas do. You fly as high as you can, encouraged by each other. I'll share with you a trick of the mind that I am very well aware of. When I came to Krishna consciousness and the association of devotees, I knew everyone was a pure devotee. I had no doubt about it. And that was my paradigm. That's how I saw my Prabhus. After some time, being a neophyte, around a year or something, it's amazing. I became a pure devotee. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I was convinced. Now, let's go to the next step. We're talking about the mind's tricks. Now, you Prabhus, my association, they were no longer the pure devotees. I was better. I was more advanced than they. And language is very powerful, Then you become, they become the guys, the boys. English slang. It's horrible. It's a horrible medium for the transcendence of Krishna consciousness and its subtleties and its transcendental nature. but it's what we have. But anyway, so then, if you follow the process, there's some purification, and then you can start being deflated by the mercy of Krishna, your false ego, and you realize, well, maybe I'm not a pure devotee. Okay, I'm still more advanced, but... And then as we cultivate humility, if we have the right association, if the example's there and we have that association, then it's contagious, especially if we want to become like them. We want what that Prabhu has. Then we start recognizing the good in everybody and how everybody has something to offer us. There are moons and there are stars, like I think, which was more bright, the Saturn and Jupiter one? I think Jupiter was the brightest of the two when they came together. So there are stars and then there's stars. But as we advance in Krishna consciousness, we should be praying to realize that actually, not only do I have something to learn from all you Prabhus, but actually all of you are my Prabhus. I'm less than all of my association. That's where Krishna consciousness takes us. That's what humility means. When one crosses the threshold in Sambandha Gyan, fixed nishta, realizing that we're a tiny, eternal spirit soul, then one is no longer puffed up. No longer do you have this mentality. Yudhisthira Prabhu shared it with me. Evidently he's used it for years, but I never heard him say it. We cease being a rules ranger. A rules ranger. That the rules and regulations, you're not following it. You're not following that. You're not following this, that, and whatever. That's not our business. That's not what the regulated principles of freedom are about. They're about us. How well are we measuring up to following them? And even if we are externally following them, are we doing it with the motive of becoming the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Gopinath, Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis? This is what is offered in Bhagavatam by the spiritual master and the disciplic succession. This is what we get encouragement from, support of from the association devotees. A devotee is judged by their qualities. That's how you know who a devotee is. Not by what they look, not simply by what they say, and not even always what they do. But the qualities don't lie. You can BS some people some of the time. You can fool some people all the time, but you're never going to fool your spiritual master, Krishna. You may even fool yourself. I talked about that stage. But we won't fool Guru and Krishna, so we might as well get serious about it. There's one last verse that I'll share with you, because it pertains to how or what I'm speaking about. As long as one has to... This is for you, Prabhu, 7:15:45. This once again is Narada Muni. We've invoked his mercy, at least tried to. We're repeating his instructions. He tells us, as long as one has to accept a material body with its different parts and paraphernalia, which are not fully under one's control. Can you relate? Is our mind fully controlled? Our desires fully controlled? One must have the lotus feet of his superiors, namely his spiritual master and the spiritual master's predecessors. Let me reread that whole thing. As long as one has to accept a material body with its different parts and paraphernalia, which are not fully under one's control, one must have the lotus feet of his superiors, namely his spiritual master and the spiritual master's predecessors. By their mercy, one can sharpen the sword of knowledge. And with the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's mercy, one must then conquer the enemies mentioned above: passion and ignorant attachment, hostility, greed, lamentation, illusion, fear, madness, false prestige, insults, fault-finding, deception, envy, intolerance, passion, bewilderment, hunger, and sleep. All enemies we have to come to control. Sometimes one's conceptions are even polluted by goodness. Think about that a moment. So you have to conquer those enemies mentioned above with the sword of knowledge being sharpened by the power of Lord Krishna's mercy. This way the devotee should be able to merge into his own transcendental bliss, and then he may give up his body and resume his spiritual identity. Our process has been made so simple. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Chant Hare Krishna and share it with others and make them happy. One line. Chant, dance, take prasadam. It is so easy. Prabhupada said in one letter, I've always stressed this point, that if we simply follow the regulative principles, avoiding the four sinful activities, chant regularly, daily, 16 rounds, and maintain firm faith equally in Krishna and the spiritual master, then your life will become sublime. I said I'd end there. I don't want to, but I will. Anybody have any questions? I do, but does anyone have any questions or comments? Give the mic to... You can't handle the truth.
I was listening to I was listening to Guru Kripa. Prabhu was giving some class there in Vrindavan, and
recorded or personally?
Recorded class.
Okay.
And he was saying that he would go up to Prabhupada and he would ask him, he would say, Prabhupada, we're going out. He would tell him how long they're going out and, distributing books and collecting and all that. He said, yeah, Prabhupada, we're going out 18 hours.
I wish he had his accent. I wish he could impersonate him right now. Yeah, Prabhupada.
We're going out 18 hours a day. And then you think about it, it's like you got 6 more hours to, I don't know, what sleep or eat or whatever. You say, we're going to 18 hours a day. Prabhupada said, oh, you're only going on 18 hours?
You're only going out 18 hours? Thank you for sharing that. You reminded me of something that Srila Prabhupada told your spiritual master. Giriraj Swami one time told Srila Prabhupada, I really like this preaching. And Srila Prabhupada said, you really like this preaching? No, this preaching is our life. Can you unmuffle yourself just for a moment, if you're safe?
I'd love to do that. Thank you. This is the greatest austerity I've had in a long time. Hare Krishna. Just to give a shout out for Savasan Tadit as
Savasaditya Prabhu's
the
gate.
austerities they performed for many, many years to support that temple and run that temple, and this is it's
two of the heroes
awesome. Truly
of
awesome.
our movement.
I'm sorry?
Two of the heroes of our movement. If anybody else wants to glorify any other devotees, jump in. It's the purpose. Lord Chaitanya would appear as if he had 5 mouths. That's when he was in low gear. Krishnamurti, a nice example of Vanaprastha, situated his family nicely. It wasn't as favorable to maintain staying there in their company. Left them behind and went to Vrindavan. He's been there basically ever since. Came back for this or that, for a wedding, I think, just to show support for a child. But the path is there. It's marked out. We just have to follow. Thank you for your association, your attention, for the enlivening example that you've been setting up for me and for the movement in this marathon. It's certainly brought life to our Sangha and Radhagir Hari Mandir. So Srila Prabhupada ki, Sankirtan Yagya ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Samaveda Gora Bhakta Vrinda ki. Hare Krishna.